Hi everyone, my name is Stephen Pu. I'm the founder of the Terrestrial Project, and this is our Blockchain One-on-One series. And today we're going to talk about a very interesting concept that has really been on the top of minds of most of the participants in the blockchain space, which is, how can we drive adoption, right? How can we drive widespread mainstream adoption of blockchain technology? So the first thing we want to look at is, well, what makes blockchain so hard, right? Why is it so hard to drive adoption for? So these are some of the very, very common insights that we've distilled through our own experience here at Teresa while we're building the technology as well as the applications. Okay, so first thing, right? Blockchain is infrastructural technology. So that means the end user does not need to know or hear about blockchain at all, right? So an analogy of blockchain technology might be something very simple, like, for example, TCP/IP, right? A basic communication protocol for the internet, or single crystal silicon, right? Which is what's used to make the microprocessors that are in your phones or in your computers, right? Do you need to know about them? If you use a computer, do you need to know about silicon? If you're using an app, do you need to know about TCP/IP or SSL or whatever? You don't, right? You don't know about it. You don't care about them, right? All you care about are the benefits, right? You're able to connect with someone else. You have a phone that's really fast, right? And you have an application that's really secure, right? You care about the benefits as an end user. What's really problematic today is that a lot of the people that are creating applications in the blockchain space, they make blockchain front and center to that application. We think that's actually a very, very large mistake because it adds in unnecessary complexity. It confuses the users and, you know, consequently significantly cuts down your addressable market and prevents you from getting into mainstream adoption. So blockchain is infrastructure technology. You really should not be revealing that to the end users. Second, trust is not measured. So one of the biggest problems that blockchain solves is this idea of closing trust gaps, adding trust to information that's being exchanged between different entities. Trust is actually very, very expensive in our society, right? We have, as a human race, built up so much, so many mechanisms in our society to ensure that there's trust, right, every single day as we go about our business. That those mechanisms have always been taken for granted, and they're largely invisible, right? So, we have legal systems, we have families. The concept of families itself is a trust mechanism, right? The concept of tribes or nations, these are all built to so that we can rely upon each other. The concept of organizations or companies or corporations, these are all built around the idea that a group of people can come together and trust one another in collaborating towards a common goal. There's just so much of this embedded into our society that we don't think about it. And quite frankly, it's not something that's measured, right? So the cost of trust is really not well measured in our society today. And the cost of trust is very, very high, right? So what happens when you don't measure something? Well, if you don't measure something, you don't know, you don't necessarily understand or realize that there's a problem, right? If you don't measure how much you're eating and exercising, you might not realize, there might be a problem with your health, right? If you're not measuring the performance of different departments or individuals within your organization, you might not understand why overall results are bad, right? So if you don't measure a problem, you don't understand the problem and you don't realize that there is a problem. So the fact that the cost of trust is not really measured today means that people don't necessarily see the value of decentralized systems like blockchain. The third one is really has to do with user experience, which is that decentralized systems such as blockchain, they place a great deal of emphasis on personal responsibility. So if it's truly decentralized down to the individual user, that individual user is actually responsible for everything. Imagine if you had an application where there's no password recovery. You lose your password, you lose all your data, you lose all your money. Period. There's no recourse, nobody can help you. That's pretty scary, right? That's pretty scary for most people. I would say the vast majority of people in the world will find that very unacceptable, right? So these three things, I think, are what's really going to prevent and what has been preventing the um, uh, the mainstream adoption of blockchain technology, right? So how do we do that? How do we drive towards that goal? How can we drive towards adoption much better, right? Number one, like I said before, hide the complexity, right? The end user does not need to hear about blockchain. He does not need to hear about coins. He does not need to hear about cryptography. He doesn't need to hear about any of this stuff. The end user only needs to hear about the benefits that decentralized systems like blockchain gives him or her, right? So talk about the benefits, hide the technical complexity because it doesn't matter. It only confuses the end user. Second, as a space overall, I think every project should really dedicate a little bit of time into figuring out how they could measure uh, the problem that they're solving, right? The cost of the problem that they're solving. So just like any good startup, you need to measure, quantify, right? The cost of quantify the benefits or quantify the costs of the problems that you're solving, right? So that is something that we should all strive to do is measure the cost of trust, right? What are you solving? Typically, that's a trust gap problem. How much is it costing people right now? And how much money and energy and effort and complexity and overall risk, right, are you reducing, right, for the participants that decide to migrate into your application? Have to keep measuring this. And the third point is that we have to be very practical, right? We have to be very practical and not just try to decentralize for decentralization's sake. We have to be practical in leveraging both centralized systems as well as decentralized systems to create applications that minimizes the complexity, the bad user experience, that hides the infrastructural technology. At the same time, make sure that we get the benefits of decentralized systems that the centralized systems cannot cheat, right? So you have decentralized systems ensuring that centralized systems are transparent, they cannot cheat, they cannot become a single point of failure, but at the same time leverage all the benefits that come with centralized systems, primarily performance and user experience. So this is what we think on why it's been so hard to drive blockchain adoption and what we can do as a space overall and as individual application teams to really make sure that adoption is driven forward more effectively. Thank you.